Hello, everybody. How y'all doing today? It's going to be a fun night tonight of baseball. So, in summary, and I think this is important to go over because every once in a while there's like an overarching I don't want to say theme, but there's something that will shape how we do everything in terms of a slate. And I think that today we have one of those issues with how bad the pitching is overall. And I do mean bad overall. When I was putting everything together, and as you've seen, if you go on the lineups page of Bathrobe Sports, I put together a hot and a cold. And while I wait until the next day to do the batters because I want, yesterday's stats to count towards hot and cold, for the pitchers that pitch every 5 days, I can do that hot and cold, 3 days ago if I really wanted to, assuming that the pitchers pitch. So if you're looking at just the pitchers that are going today and the recent form, we have 30 or so pitchers that are pitched 14 days. There are a couple that have not. Keuchel, for example, has not had a major league start in 14 days, so he would be left out of this. But if we are looking at, let's take FIP, right? Generally, you want someone like under 3 FIP is really good. Under 4 is good enough, but under 3.5 is really, really good, right? If we look at the pitchers that are going today, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitchers with an FIP under 3, and then only 2 more in between 3 and 4, which means 8 out of 30 pitchers have been good to very good over the last 14 days. That means that 22 of the 28 are going to be harder for us to take. If we look at XFIP, it's basically the same. We want someone closer to 3, right? Hey, Matt, how you doing? We want someone closer to 3. 4 is okay, right? But 3 is where you really, really want it. If you look at XFIP, Andrew Kittredge is under 3, so we can ignore him because he's going to get 1 inning for the Rays today. Then you have Walker Buehler with an XFIP of 2.67, and that's it. No other pitcher today has an XFIP under 3. You have Marquez at 3.14, Strasburg 3.20, Martin Perez 3.29, Matt Boyd 3.46, Sandy Alcantara and Reynaldo Lopez jump up to 3.86, which isn't terrible whatsoever. And we're going to get into the specifics of all of these guys later. But the point I'm trying to make is this is not a slate where there's 2 ways of looking at it. As far as I would say, this is not a slate where you can really get cute, right? There's not going to be a lot of pitching options. And the pitching options that are the best are going to be not only chalky, but significantly better than the other options, right? So, much like yesterday when I recommended and talked about how, you can take a chance on Gallen, you could take a chance on Franmil, who looked really, really nice at the beginning of that game. The safest bet and something that would separate you from the field would be to take, Morton and Montas, which is what I wound up doing. And it really worked out nicely because I also had the 2,200 Garlic from the LA Dodgers in the outfield to help me fit other bats in. It worked out very nicely. So as of right now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitchers projected to have 15% or more ownership, according to Roto Grinders. Everyone else is projected to be at 7% or less. So, what I'm going to do for you right now is sync this up because this is very important, right? If we look at those pitchers that have the FIP and the XFIP of where we want, we can look at their ownership as well and see if it's enough to dissuade us or if we still want to bite the bullet. And there's a few things I'm going to talk about. Again, I like to do this game by game, and I'm going to go over it game by game. But I think that having a preface today to talk about pitching is necessary, considering how mediocre at best the entirety of pitching today is. So, number one is Chris Sale. FIP over the last 14 days, 0.55 with an XFIP of 1.90. That's backed up by, an almost 14 strikeouts per nine, 0 home runs, 0.85 whip. He is clearly the best pitcher on the slate. He is projected to be the second highest owned, though, at 26%. I think that is again, like I talked about yesterday, a place where you can spend up to be contrarian. Chris Sale should be 40% owned on this slate. Again, if you look at the other pitching options, Chris Sale is the closest to a sure thing I've seen. The dude that I've been working on Bathrobe Sports with, the guy who's going to be, revamping everything and getting some sponsors, not advertisers, sponsors. I'm still vehemently against that kind of thing. Although, we'll see, because I got to pay the bills and medicine is $500 every week. But again, regardless of all of that, he showed me something today that really did blow my mind. The over-under prop in Vegas for sale strikeouts today is 9. That is very, very rare that a pitcher is, in order to say a pitcher is going to go over, he's going to have to get a double digit in strikeouts. But they think that it is basically just as likely that he gets it or that he doesn't get it. That's essentially, hey, HF, hey, man, how you been? Good, good. Hey, I'm getting by. I'm doing what I can, staying positive. That's all what it's all about, right? So Chris Sale, is a fantastic pitcher in fantastic form who's been pitching fantastically. And while 26% is nothing to sneeze at, it's not nearly where it should be. Next up, Walker Buehler. His whip over the last 14 days, 0.57, FIP 1.24, XFIP 2.76. I would say he's clearly the second best option on the slate, but if you look at my projections, I have Walker Buehler as getting the most projected points today. Walker Buehler is 15% owned, which is sixth most according to Roto Grinders. Which I pay for. And, hopefully one of these days I'm going to do my own ownership projections, but, it's so much guessing. So Walker Buehler I've projected to get the most points today. Trevor Story is out. Arenado was removed from the game yesterday, and he could be out. This is going to be, Charlie Blackmon and then the shell of a bunch of dudes for Colorado. So, I think that Sale and Buehler, as the 1 and 2 best pitchers going into the slate, have had the 1 and 2 best forms of the pitchers going in on the slate. And I would be a big fan of going over the field on them and doing what I could to see if there's a way to get Sale and Buehler in my lineup, or Bauer and Buehler, because if you keep going, the number 3 best pitcher over the last couple of weeks is Trevor Bauer. Although his strikeouts have been down, his FIP 2.39, XFIP 3.9, WHIP 0.9, not a single home run given up. And he does have strikeout stuff, and the Tigers moved into first place in terms of the team that strikes out the most in baseball. So you have Trevor Bauer in a very, very good get right spot. He is projected to be 19% owned. So again, we have the 3 most expensive pitchers today, Sale, Bauer, and Buehler, according to Roto Grinders, projected at 26, 19, and 15% ownership, respectively. I would not I'll put it this way. So a lot of people will set their ownership caps based on what the projected ownership is. And, I think that's smart to a degree. It's still basing it off of guesses, but I understand the methodology of doing that. It makes a lot of sense because you can decide to go over or under the field based on, however many factors. I would say that I would set Sale at about 40% ownership. I would set Bueller at about 30% ownership, and I would set Bauer at between 25 and 30% ownership today. So again, while these are 3 of the 6 most highly owned pitchers today, when I get into the meat of this, you are going to understand why these are going to be almost locks for you today. There just are not that many other options. So I will go on because it is worth, again, looking at who's owned and who isn't based on recent form, because, and this is where it gets interesting, the 4th best pitcher in the last couple of weeks has been the Marlins' Sandy Alcantara. 9.9 strikeouts per 9, which is fantastic. He's walking everybody, which is terrible. 5 walks per 9 with a 1.7 whip. But he's managed to keep his FIP at 2.82, although his XFIP is 5.49. But you are getting him for 7,400. So, that is one of those, the final 2 lineups before the late slate have come out. So I can get to those 2 later. So Alcantara is someone that I wouldn't mind pivoting to, because if you go and look at his projected ownership, it's at 2%, which, granted, playing Sandy Alcantara isn't something that, I'm going to go burn down the house to do. He's not going to be someone that, I think will be absolute. Hey, E-Rush, how's it going? He's not someone that I project to, be the best pitcher today, but I do project him to get a decent amount of value. And if my computer wasn't broken, I use roto grinders right now. Although I would use Osmo, because from what I've seen, they are the best in terms of projections, ownership-wise, period. Their regular projections don't go high or low enough, which is a problem I've seen with a lot of people. They have these limits built in where, how often, if you guys pay for projections, how often do you see someone projected for more than like 12 points or for less than like 5 points? And if that's the case, how do you separate everybody instead of just 100? I mean, that's great if you're entering 150 because everybody's the same and you could just enter however many variations of all of the different lineups you want. But if you're looking for who's actually going to do well, while a 19-point projection might be the upper end of the spectrum, it does give you a lot of separation. And it's not out of, the question that, a Charlie Blackmon gets a solo home run and a double and gets 19 DKP. But you never, ever see anyone project that in real life, which is one of the reasons I set my projections up the way that I did and why I stand by them. I know they're a work in progress. I know they're not perfect, but I'm busting my ass for them. And, I am proud as hell of what I've put out because it offers that breadth. There are people that I have projected to get like 1 point something points, and you just don't see that. I've had pitchers that I've projected to get negative points that have ended up in negative points. Every other projection site has them at like 3 to 6 points, which isn't saying that they're going to get a lot. It's just not realistic. Hey, Bazam, how's it going? Long time no see too. I love it when the people come back. Again, I apologize. I was going into Sandy Alcantara. Sandy Alcantara, over his last, let's look at 6 games, right? 6 games. He went, let's go from most recent backwards. Pittsburgh, 6 innings, 14 DKP. For 7,400, not terrible, not great, but not terrible. Before that, St. Louis, a good offense, 17 DKP. Before that, Milwaukee, a very good offense, 24 DKP. Before that, San Francisco, 15 DKP. Before that, a very bad start against the Nationals, 1.9 DKP. And then before that, a complete game shutout against the Mets, 43.5 DKP. So again, I'm not saying that Sandy Alcantara is fantastic, but I'm looking at 2 weeks of his form, and you can go back 5 starts, and Alcantara is going to pay off the 7,400 more often than not, and he's only 2% projected owned, according to Roto Grinders. So, there are going to be, I know, Matt, I know. Believe me, they're still winning now, though, right? Or did they take the lead? I saw the Conforto home run. Oh, that probably just tied it. Nope. But now they got a guy on second. Hey, all right. Go Mets. Yeah, I know, the Mets. Don't get me started. But the point is, Alcantara, I know, Matt. It's ridiculous. The point is, Alcantara isn't as bad a pitcher as the 7,400 price or the 2% ownership indicates, or, the recent form, if you want to get into that as well. The 5th best pitcher, well, again, let's say it like this, because I'm not, the XFIP on some of these dudes is out of this park. Martin Perez over the last couple weeks, 10.8 strikeouts per 9, with a 2.91 FIP and a 3.29 XFIP. That is absolutely fantastic. And again, he's projected for 2% ownership on DraftKings. So I think, after, and this is where it gets tricky, after Martin Perez, there's not that many people you can trust. And I'm going to get into this when I do the game by game. But it's just, again, to summarize why I'm doing this overview, a terrible day for pitching. So there's going to be very few options. There's going to be a lot of bats to like. So let's get into the game by game. And I'm always here to answer questions. So first up, we got Miami and Philly. The Miami lineup finally came out while I was talking. Let's see if it's different than what I had. Rojas, Ramirez. Ooh, yes, it is. No Garrett Cooper today, it looks like. We have Anderson, Castro, Puelo, who's bad. Ooh, this is this is looking even better for Nola. And Nola is the highest projected owned player on the slate today. But again, that is for many, many, many good reasons. So we have Rojas, Ramirez, Anderson, Castro, Puelo, Riddle batting 6th. Ooh, that's a bad sign. Then Brian Holiday and Yadiel Rivera. So this is basically like a AAA version of a, oh God, that's not even accurate, because the Marlins lineup is already a AAA version of a major league lineup. This is basically like the AA version. Excuse me. This is basically like the AA version of the Marlins lineup. This is an absolute joke. So, this is going to come down to a question of game theory for you, much like I talked about yesterday, when Mike Trout was in an absolutely amazing place. The question is going to be, do you risk fading him when the odds of him exceeding value or exceeding expectations are so high? And I think that, looking at Nola, I can understand fading him, because 30-something% owned for someone who's pitched as badly as he has pitched is a lot to ask for. If you're looking at just recent form, did they take him? Is he not pitching anymore? Where the hell's his name? There it is. Over the last just couple weeks, 4.1 walks per 9, 1.4 whip, and that's not with luck. 6.5 ERA with a 5.2 FIP, 4.4 XFIP, 5.6 Sierra. 9 strikeouts per 9 is good, but he's given up about 2 home runs per 9 as well, and those are not Nola-like numbers. Who's someone who is, doing better when you see him getting ground balls and strikeouts. If you see him giving up home runs, then he's not pitching the way that last year's Aaron Nola pitched. So this is going to be a question of, again, do you want to eat the chalk on an incredibly talented pitcher against an awful team playing an even worse lineup who's been bad. And I think that you can go either way. Personally, for me, CNG, I will get to the late games, I promise you. I just started going through the games game by game, so I can talk about the late slate. I think you've asked me this like last week, where I went over the late slate as like its own thing while I was talking about it. And I don't mind doing that again for you. Absolutely. There's enough games and enough really cool stuff over there that I have no problem doing that. So again, this is a game where I'm going to go more towards the pitching. Alcantara, I already talked about in the opening. He is at 2% ownership, and he's going to go undervalued. I have no problem taking a chance on him, especially with, Real Muto, Segura, cold lately. Absolutely, CNG. Hey, that's what I'm here for. It's absolutely my pleasure. And then the Marlins are, well, you know what? Let's look at this, because I had Brian Anderson as the only Marlin that was either hot or cold, but that is going to change now that, there's a bunch of new dudes in the lineup. So Yadiel Rivera is cold, and then that's it. Everybody else is right around the cold border. It's not looking good for the Marlins. They are projected to get 3 runs. That, as far as I can see, is the lowest on the slate. What's Toronto at? Yeah, they're tied with Toronto for the lowest on the slate. So while Nola's chalk, this is going to be a question of how you want to play it. Personally, I have no problem taking Nola. As I said before, I think that Chris Sale should be around 40% owned. Aaron Nola in this spot, I would look to be more towards 50% owned, given how bad the rest of the pitching on the slate is. So him being projected at 33% high, and while the highest on the slate by 7%, according to RotoGrinders, it's not nearly high enough that it's going to completely push me off him, especially when it comes to single lineups. So again, if I was playing 150 today, Aaron Nola would have about 50% exposure if I could. That 8,000 price against this Marlins lineup especially is just too much. And then, this Phillies lineup with Nola batting 8th and Roman Quinn, who hits worse than a pitcher, batting 9th, and Segura and Real Muto batting poorly. Alcantara pitching well over his last 6 starts. It's just something that I wouldn't mind taking a GPP's chance on for that 7,400. So let's move on to the next game. We got the Braves and the Nats. I've been talking for 25 minutes straight, so I'm going to take a sip of this. I guess that's why a lot of these dudes start doing these in partners, right? Because they can fuck off for a while and do some other shit, not pay attention, do whatever they want while they take a drink, and the other dudes just talk so they can pretend like they're paying attention. I'm like, yeah. Hey, that guy made a really good point. Yeah. Wow, that was a great point on Acuna, Jerry. Let's keep talking about those Braves. So this is a game where I can understand wanting to take the pitchers. I don't think I'm going to want to do that. I'm going to double check something because I expected this to change based on the weather that I looked at last night, but a couple of other places had winds blowing in. Yes, it did change. That's what I was expecting. A couple places last night had the winds blowing in at the Nationals Park at around 10 to 12 miles an hour. But looking at the way everything was going, I would have expected it to be more across the field or out to right field. And now it's updated to that. So it's going to be in the mid 80s. Excuse me. It's going to be in the mid 80s with the wind blowing either across the field or out to right field at 11 miles an hour. Excuse me. On top of that, I recommend you go to did McNeil do something? Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm trying to do this. Thank you, Matt. I love it. I'm going to give you guys a link. This is the free one. So you don't have to pay anything. You don't even have to sign up for a free account. that doesn't do anything. I just, I like seeing how many people sign up, but I don't, I have never sent an email. I don't share any of that information with anybody. I've never taken advantage of that, nor will I. When I launch the new site, I will let y'all know about it via the email, but that's about it. The lineups page is there for free for the public. And I very strongly recommend you. Oh, does it not automatically link? Okay, let's try that again then. Do you have to do the www on the YouTube chat? Or does that still not work? No, you have to do the HTTP. Do you have to do the HTTP? You have to be kidding me. What kind of raggedy ass? There we go. Hey. All right. So I like to share this because it's good to go over it with me while I'm talking about everything. And if you are on the lineups page right now, and again, I recommend that you click on that link and you go and check out the lineups page. You don't have to sign up for anything. There's no ads. There never will be ads. Everything is always free. That's why I'm doing this. Well, not everything, obviously. I have premium members and all that shit, but you know what I mean. The lineups page will always be free as far as I know. But take a look at this lineups page. You have 16 total batters in this game. Out of those 16 batters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 are color-coded bright green, which means they are hot lately. 1, 2, 3, 4 are not hot or cold, one of which is Michael A. Taylor, who would be hot if not for the fact that he's only had 3 at-bats in the last week, and I don't consider that a legitimate enough sample size to determine hot and cold. And then Yan Gomes has an OPS of like 125 over the last week, so he's basically untouchable, but every single other batter from this game has looked absolutely fantastic, right? And on top of that, we have a Steven Strasburg who over the last a couple of weeks has an FIP of 5.92, is giving up 3 home runs per 9, and his strikeouts have dipped from like the 11 and 12 it was at the beginning of the season to 8.25. So this is a Steven Strasburg who, granted, he's an ace. So let's not try to be too cute here. I'm not saying that Strasburg's a bad pitcher that we should normally target. What I'm saying is that, good pitchers go through bad stretches, just like every other baseball player. The reason I do hot and cold is because baseball is such a streaky sport, and it is good to know who has been in good form lately and who has been in bad form lately to add to the amount of knowledge that you have. So, you can know that Strasburg is a good pitcher, but the weather lines up badly for him because it's going to be hot with the wind blowing out. The Vegas total lines up badly for him. His recent form lines up badly for him. The price lines up badly for him. And how hot the Washington Nationals lineup has been recently lines up badly for him. Excuse me, how hot the Atlanta Braves lineup has been recently is bad for him. So because of that, and because Strasburg is an ace pitcher, that makes me really, really like the Braves today. Generally speaking, if you can find a high-priced pitcher that you think is going to do poorly, try to make sure you get a stack, because ownership against those pitchers is always diminished. Always, across the board, every time, even if it's a good pitcher going through bad stuff, even if it's Syndergaard going against a team that steals 400 bases, those people are going to be under-owned because of the pitcher they are going against. So with all of those knocks on Strasburg, and with the fact that, there are so many obvious bats, there's so much obvious chalk that people are going to be on today, taking an incredibly hot Braves team is a cheaper way of getting a full stack against a good pitcher. Because again, when you're going against a pitcher of Strasburg's quality, you also get a price break on all of your players. That's why, Acuna is 45, Freeman is only 49, he's under 5,000. Donaldson, who can't stop hitting home runs, is 42. Austin Riley, who's been in the mid 5,000s, is 48. Brian McCann, who might be the hottest catcher going right now, 3,900. These are far too cheap for how hot they've been, for what they're projected to do, and for what the game environment looks like. So while not my favorite stack of the day, obviously, objectively speaking, holistically, if you look at the whole slate, and holistically means looking at the whole thing, not like new age bullshit. Holistically, if you look at the entirety of the slate, there are going to be better teams in better spots against worse pitchers. That's not what I'm trying to argue here. What I'm trying to argue is that the Braves are in a fantastic spot and will be dramatically underowned as a team that has a chance of getting to 10 runs. And we cannot forget either a very, very significant thing, which is that the Washington Nationals bullpen ERA has hovered around 7 the entire season. There was a game that I recommended taking, I believe it was the Cubs against the Nationals, saying that I thought Strasburg would go 5 or 6 innings and then the Cubs would have their way. And I think they scored like 11 or 12 runs in those 4 innings against the Nats bullpen. So it's just a preponderance of reasons to take a chance on the Braves, especially if you're playing multiple lineups. I really, really do like them for a lot of different reasons. And again, on the other side, I'm curious to see what Keuchel's projected ownership is. They have Keuchel SC. That was going to be the determining factor. Keuchel, I was on the fence about. But he is projected at 3% ownership, according to Roto Grinders. Let me see if they've updated that, because that just seems too low. That's 3% ownership. That seems just too low for someone who won a Cy Young Award several years ago. Excuse me. I understand. I understand everything about why you would love and hate Keuchel. Right? If you want me to break it down for you, he's old. He wasn't good enough to get a contract in the offseason. They didn't want to risk losing a first-round pick who you never even know what that means in baseball for the chance of Dallas Keuchel, who won the Cy Young a few years ago. So that should speak to him. He is a ground ball and not a strikeout pitcher. So if you, and I already know this because I've been doing this baseball research for years. Dallas Keuchel does not get strikeouts. He had one really good strikeout year, and that's when he won the Cy Young. But for the most part, his K9 is going to be in the 6 or 7 range because he just hammers, sinkers over and over and over again and gets, hits and then gets people to ground into double plays. But the way he approaches lineups is not, I'm going to strike these people out. It is, I'm going to get around these dudes and make them make bad contact. So if you are talking about someone that is 6,000, 6,500, like an Ivan Nova, I can understand taking that chance. But Dallas Keuchel is and it's still going to be the winds blowing outish to 11 miles an hour to right field. And and that is just not a good environment for him. That he has been bad so far in the minor leagues this year. I had the numbers upstairs when I was doing my research. So bear with me here so he pitched 2 games, 2, one in single A, where I could strike somebody out and I can't walk, and 1 game in double A. He got 7 innings, both, right? His strikeout. That's to be expected. What isn't very good is the walks. He got 1.3, which Keuchel is a dominant control guy. If he is walking that many people, you are going to see a lot of trouble for him. And you saw that, the reason that he wasn't pitching well the last few years is because he lost a lot of that control. And while he didn't give up a run in that, he did not pitch as well as that indicates. And then if you go to Double A, and this is where the real cause for concern should jump out for you, 5.14 strikeouts per nine through 7 innings. This is, again, a Double A going against Double A. You should not, as a Cy Young pitcher, be doing that. Granted, and I'm not saying that to disparage him. I'm not saying that to say that Keuchel cannot be a fantastic pitcher this year. What I mean to say is he's clearly not ready, right? He got the start in Single A. He got the start in Double A. He showed rust. He showed that he doesn't have the command. He doesn't have the stuff that he had or he would have had if he was in the big leagues the entire year. So there's really no chance to take a chance on him when, again, he's not a strikeout pitcher. That success that he had in Single A is more representative of Single A. What he did in Double A should worry you because he might not get 2 strikeouts today. And if he doesn't get 2 strikeouts today, he's not going to make value no matter what he does. So, this comes to the next point, which is as hot as the Nats are, and as much as I don't really like Keuchel tonight, I'm not interested in taking the Nats bats. As I've explained, just a few minutes ago, Keuchel is a ground ball pitcher. All Keuchel does is elicit ground balls. And, the one thing that a ground ball pitcher doesn't do is give up home runs. So, for that, I am going to take the Braves bats. I wouldn't mind taking a Keuchel chance if you're playing 150, but I'm really not going to take a lot of Nats bats either, just because, he all he's going to do is pound the ball into the ground, and the Braves bullpen, while not great, is good enough that I'm not trusting the Nats to score all of their runs against them. All right, so moving on, I'm going to go to the Braves and the Pirates. This is one of those where if I were to talk about it, I never had Means projected to pitch, not famous. So I saw last night at about 10:30 p.m. that they put Means on the IL. And initially they were going to play Yacobonis as an opener and then Sean Gilmartin as the starter. And now it looks like, ooh, is my mustache curling? That's funny. Yeah, I'm going to have to shave that. Hey, let's get on my penny farthing. So as of last night, I had Gilmartin as the starter. Hey, awesome, AJ. See, good. That's what I'm talking about. I do what I can. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. So not famous, to answer your question. My projections are currently up to date. They were up to date with all of the confirmed lineups as of 4:30, and that includes any and all pitching changes. No, that can't be true. Is that true? Frankie Montas suspended for 60 games for PEDs? Oh, 80 games. Holy shit. Wow, maybe that's why he was pitching so good this year. That is crazy. Matt, that is crazy. Wow, I wondered where that came from. He was a decent pitcher, but he wasn't like over 10,000 on DraftKings good. Oh, man. That is shocking. Shocking in this day and age. You expect it out of those Double A dudes that are trying to make it for them. Was on his way to the All-Star game. Yeah, that is shocking. That is going to really hurt the A's too, like severely hurt the A's. I mean, they were desperate enough that they had to bring up Tanner Anderson, who's not ready and can't pitch that well in the majors. What the hell are they going to do without the clear? Well, that's it for them. Ooh, that couldn't be any worse. That really is as bad as it gets. I can't. I cannot believe that. Wow. Wow. That is that is the biggest news today. That even with the all-star shit, that's going to be the biggest news today. Man. All right, let's move on. I wanted to talk about this so if I were to just talk about the Padres, all bets against Oakland from now on nightly stack, right? I mean, Jesus, they're going to have a lot of games stacked against them because Tanner Anderson is already like almost a free square. Whoever they bring on, or they're going to have to sign somebody like really terrible or pick up somebody off of waivers that gets dropped by another team because he's terrible. Oh man, that's going to be really, really bad for the A's. I feel bad for the A's fans. So if I were to just talk about the Padres and the Pirates game, it might lead you to think that I think that these are two of the best stacks today. And while I do love them a lot, they are middle of the pack at best, right? So, I don't mean to skip over anything. If they bring up Luzardo, that would be. I don't know if they're going to take that risk though, right? Why, if it's going to be a lost season now, do you really want to bring them up? And I don't know. I'd love to see that though. I would love to see Luzardo. Man, that would be really something else. Anyway, let's get to this. I like the Padres bats. I like the Pirates bats. I don't like them as much as I like a lot of other teams. So I have no interest in Lauer or Musgrove. Even if I was playing multiple lineups, I wouldn't be playing them. I would have some exposure to the Tatis, Machado, Renfroe, Reyes, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Padres lineup. I would have some exposure to, Reynolds as a one-off on the Pirates lineup, maybe Bell, but probably not as a one-off in the Pirates lineup. But there are just too many better stacks out there today than to go to two teams that are going to get barely over 4 runs. You know what I mean? So it's not worth it. And it's better for us to just move on to the next game, which is one where I think people are going to go for the pitching. And I think, again, much like with the Braves, this is one where you can go with the hitting today. This is the Astros and the Yankees. Brad Peacock against James Paxton. I think Peacock and Paxton are going to be pretty popular today. And that's not just because I like alliteration. I really do think they're going to be highly owned because their prices are just too low and people will ignore all of the other factors and take, Peacock's at 7,800 or Paxton's at 8,100 with that strikeout upside, let me take a chance on him. But that's ignoring, again, a couple factors. One, the Astros and the Yankees have been hitting crazy good lately. And that's ignoring the fact that Aaron Judge is coming back and leading off today. I mean, the Yankees are starting the lineup with Judge, Gary Sanchez, Gregorius, Stanton, and Edwin Encarnacion. That is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Let me get back to my pitcher information here. And then on top of that, Peacock over the last couple weeks has a 7.49 FIP with a 5.8 XFIP. So he just has not been pitching well. On top of that, the Astros have also been incredibly hot lately. The only hitter on the Astros that has not been hot or close to it is Altuve, and he's just getting his feet back from the injury, so he can snap back into it any day. And given how good he is against lefties, this might be a decent spot for him. If you look at the Paxton stats over the last couple weeks, 8.3 strikeouts per 9, which is significantly under where you would expect to see him. Over 3 walks per 9, 2.1 home runs per 9, and 2.1 whip with a 5.4 FIP. So Paxton is a pitcher with a good skill set, and I think that people are going to jump on him because of the price, but we really shouldn't ignore the fact that, Bregman, Brantley, Altuve, Jordan Alvarez, Chirinos, White, Marisnik, Straw are all very, very good bats. In the case of the Astros, Bregman, Brantley, Jordan Alvarez, White, Marisnik, and Straw are all hot, and Chirinos was this close to being hot. So that's what, 7 of the 9 bats in this lineup. 6 of the no, it's nope, 7 of the 9 bats in this lineup are hot, with the only cold person being Altuve, and he's one of the best hitters in baseball. So this is one where, again, there are other stacks I would say I like better. The Yankees are going to be pretty high up there today. And I think that the Astros should be in that same tier with the Braves in terms of a team that is in a better spot than most people would think and are going to go under-owned because of it. Next game up, we have the Tigers and the Indians. We have Matty Boyd, 9,700, and Trevor Bauer at 11-1 on DraftKings. This is one where I really like Trevor Bauer a lot. I already talked about him. The Tigers strike out more than any other team in baseball, and he has been pitching well. The only thing we needed from him is more strikeouts. So what better spot can you ask than him going against the team that strikes out more than anybody? On top of that, they're playing, Jacoby Jones and Kristen Stewart, 1 and 2, who are the 2 coldest hitters on their team. And they still have Harold Castro, Bobby Wilson, and Gordon Beckham at the 7, 8, 9. And they are all very, very bad hitters. So this is a fantastic spot for Trevor Bauer. I could understand, given ownership and everything, if you pivot down from Sale to Bauer, but I have no problem, seeing if it's feasible, and it probably won't be given their prices, to get both of those dudes in there, because man, that would be nice. And then on the other side, you have Matthew Boyd, who I do like a lot as a pitcher. And I respect a lot as a pitcher. And because of that, I'm not really a big fan of the Indians. If you look at the lineups page that I linked before, the Indians have 6 of their 9 that are very, very hot lately. And on top of that, they have Lindor, who is murderous against lefties. So again, much like the Houston lineup, that's 7 of the 9 batters that Boyd is going to have to seriously worry about. So while I am not a big fan of taking batters against Boyd, this is another spot where we are going to have an under-owned Indians team, much like an under-owned Astros team and an under-owned Braves team, simply because of how good the opposing pitcher is. Like I said, this is a very tough slate for pitching. A lot of the good pitchers have either been pitching really, really badly or are going against really hot teams that are projected to score a bunch of runs in really great environments. And, Boyd is no exception to that rule. He's someone that if he were going against the Marlins or the Orioles or the Blue Jays or a whole list of other teams, Boyd would be someone I loved tonight at 9,700. But this is an Indians team that has been hot. And you can see that just in the way, they've been scoring runs in the stats that I've showed you. So I think that the Indians, while I have them under the Braves, who I have over, the Braves are my favorite of the under-owned stacks against good pitchers. But I do have the Indians right there with the Astros. So Bauer's one of my favorite pitchers of the day. Indians, one of my favorite stacks of the day. Moving on, we got the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. I already talked about Chris Sale. Chris Sale is the best option today, period. End sentence. On the other side, you have Trent Thornton. Trent Thornton, I was starting to talk about before when I was talking about pitchers that have been doing well lately, but it's not good if you actually dig into the back of the stats. So he's a high strikeout pitcher. So he's someone you would want at 11 or so strikeouts per 9, and he's sitting at 8.5, which for him is low. He's also walking 4.6 per 9, which is absolutely ludicrous. That's caused his whip to be 1.63. And this is what you can see. He's been very, very lucky. He has a 2.31 ERA, and then you look at his FIP, and it's 2.89 and 2.82, excuse me. You're like, oh, he hasn't been doing as badly as you would think with all those walks. But then you dig further into the XFIP, and it's 5.5, and his Sierra is 5.3. So, while I think that it's a GP, like a deep GPP play to take Thornton, just going against the Boston team in Boston with a 5.6 projected total, almost no chance of getting a win. I've always talked about how the win is overrated, but it's still points. And if there's 0% chance for it, you can factor that in. So, Red Sox bats, I love. Not as much as other people love them. I don't love them as much as Vegas. But I do love them. Betts, Bogarts, and Holt especially. And then Chris Sale again, best pitcher tonight. If you can afford him, there's not much better that you can do. Next up, we got the White Sox and the Rangers. We have Reynaldo Lopez taking on Ariel Jurado. This is one, man, if the wind is blowing in at 16 miles an hour in Texas, but the temperatures are going to be between 95 and 100. And it's important to note this, there are a couple of ballparks that have been built to minimize the impact of the wind. San Francisco has one of them, and Texas has another one of them. So while the wind is blowing in at 16, while that's not going to have no effect, it doesn't have the same effect as if they were playing, in Wrigley Field or something like that, or Citizens Bank. So you have the temperatures at 95 to 100, and that is going to cause the balls to fly out. There's a reason that Vegas has this game, at 11.5 projected total, with the White Sox 5.3 and the Rangers still almost beating by a run. So this is one where the bats are going to be taken, and the bats are going to be very, very popular. When it comes to the White Sox, Moncada, Abreu, McCann, and Eloy Jimenez are absolutely fantastic plays. I have absolutely no problem at all starting with those four in your lineup, even though all of them are about 5,000, and then calling it a day. I think that you will do well. I just don't think it's the best play for you. I think the other side is going to do you a lot better. Reynaldo Lopez was a very good prospect for the Nats, but he has not been, Giolito. He has been hit or misso. And that's, a terrible, terrible thing. And I wish I hadn't said. He will get 14 strikeouts in 6 innings, and then he'll get 14 strikeouts over his next 6 starts. And this is, a weather, the weather conditions are there. There's not a single cold batter on the Rangers team. I think Odor is cold. I think I did not update that. Hold on one second. Maybe this is where I ended. Nope, Odor is not cold. 614 OPS over the last week. 257 WOBA. Not great, but not cold. So you have Danny Santana, who would be the must play here. Dual possession eligibility, 5,000 on DraftKings, 2,900 on FanDuel. He is one of the, if not the best value play of the day over there on FanDuel. And then, you have anybody else that you want to fit. Chu, Andrus, Mazzara, Calhoun, especially, are the ones I love the best. I love the way Willie Calhoun hits. So he would probably be the second guy I lock in. And that also helps that he is only 4,500, where almost everybody else is 5,000 or more. So this is one where it's pretty obvious. This is 2 of the best stacks of the day. You just have to understand that they are going to be extremely popular, because everyone can see, an 11.5 run Vegas total. And a lot of people are going to have projections that come out that take that into account and ignore the fact that, the Braves can score 10 runs too today. So let's move on. My back is starting to hurt really badly, so I cannot do this much longer. The Reds and the Brewers. We have the Brewers lineup has come out while I started talking, which is nice. So I will go over that. Ooh, it is a bad lineup for the Brewers. Interesting. Interesting. That changes things. That changes things a lot. Okay, so for the Reds, we have Sonny Gray, and for the Brewers, we have Chase Anderson. The Reds lineup I have Senzel Votto, Suarez, Dietrich Puig, Iglesias, Peraza, and Casali, which is not their A lineup, but is not bad. The one batter that I want you to lock in today, though, is Yasiel Puig. This is one of those that I always want to point out to you. It is someone who is hot, who's an extreme reverse splits batter going against a reverse splits pitcher of the same handedness. In this case, Puig has been on fire the last week and a half or so. He's only 4,400. He's an extreme reverse splits righty going against a reverse splits righty in Chase Anderson. So Puig, oh, I love Puig today. I would play Puig as a one-off in a lot of your lineups. I have no problem going far afield, over the field on Puig. Absolutely one of my favorite bats on the day, period. Again, like Santana, only 2,900 on FanDuel for some reason. Absolutely ludicrous. On the other side, we have Sonny Gray pitching, and while I didn't like him that much, the Brewers lineup came out. Lorenzo Cain is moved down to third, so Ryan Braun is resting. Ben Gamel is leading off, which is never good. Eric Thames moves into the 5 slot because Grandal is resting, which means Manny Pena is catching. That's never good. And then you still have Shaw and Arcia batting 7 and 8, and they cannot hit worth a lick. So this is a, not. It still has Christian Yelich in it. Let's be fair. This isn't going to be, something where you can play absolutely any pitcher you want against the Brewers. They still have some really significant bats. The thing you have to understand is these bats are not nearly as good as the other bats that they would have played. So Sonny Gray's ownership is going to be under what it would have been if, let's say, yesterday night, it was announced that Ryan Braun and Yasmani Grandal were injured and would not be playing today. Sonny Gray's ownership today would have been significantly higher than what it is right now because the Brewers lineup is that much weaker than it would have otherwise been. So now you get the advantage of looking at, the lineups as they come out and understanding how that changes everything. And I mean everything. So where Sonny Gray might have been, on the fence for you before, now you can see that he has a better percentage chance of exceeding projection or exceeding value. And his ownership is going to be under what it would have been had this news broken earlier. Right. And all of those things line up to me trying to get over the field on Sonny Gray here. Whereas I did not expect to say that. I would have had Sonny Gray as a mediocre pitcher with the chance of, taking a couple of those Brewers bats against him. But yeah, Sonny Gray going with Ben Gamel leading off, Thames, Pena, Shaw, Arcia, Anderson is the 5 through 9. Yelich concerns me. Yelich shouldn't concern anybody, but he's it. 1.173 OPS over the last week. Gamel is a 762, Mustaka 700, Eric Thames 750, Lorenzo Cain 591, Shaw 527, Orlando Arcia 221 OPS over the last week. This is much worse for the Brewers and much better for Sonny Gray. So that would be one of the pieces of advice I would give to you that I did not expect to give to you. Sonny Gray today. Not as bad a play as I would have thought. Let's move on. Next, we got the Twins and the Royals. The Twins got one of the weirdest things that's going to happen this year happened, and Sparkman for the Royals yesterday shut down the Twins, which I very strongly doubt is going to happen two days in a row with a poor pitching Jacob Junis in a ballpark where it's going to be between 80 and 85 degrees with the wind blowing out to left field at 12 miles an hour. So this is one where I am a big fan of taking the Twins. I think that, like I said, a lot of ownership is going to be on the Rangers and the White Sox, and you're going to be able to get the Twins coming off of a disappointing day yesterday when a lot of people were on them at lesser ownership than they should have because of that fact. So I would say that all things being equal, the Twins are my favorite stack today. All things being equal. If you're talking about, trying to get over on the field, I would probably put the Braves and the Astros in around the territory, but all things being said, the Twins are in a fantastic spot. Jacob Junis has been very bad lately. 6.07 FIP, 5.15 XFIP, 2.5 strikeouts per nine. He's not that good a pitcher, and the Twins are going to be able to take advantage of him very, very badly, especially Kepler. Ooh, boy, do I love Kepler. Ooh, the Oakland A's lineup's out. So I can talk about that when we get to the night games. And then on the other side, we have Martin Perez going for the Twins. I already talked about him. He's one of the 5 pitchers that are worth pitching today. Now with Sonny Gray, 6 pitchers that are worth pitching today. So, as much as I've talked in the past about how the Royals are underrated against righties, they are missing Adalberto Mondesi, which is a big loss for going against lefties. And they get Hunter Dozier back, and he's an extreme reverse splits hitter, which means he's not as good against lefties. So you have Merrifield and Soler, who we would need to worry about, but Nicky Lopez can hit. Hunter Dozier doesn't hit well against lefties. Cuthbert has been extremely cold. Humberto Arteaga can't hit very well. Maldonado is one of the worst hitting catchers in baseball, even though he's been hot. Terrence Gore shouldn't ever be in the lineup. He should just pinch run. And Billy Hamilton is always cold and shouldn't be anything but a pinch runner for somebody. So, Martin Perez, absolutely love him. 7,600. He's going to be one of the best value options that you have today. And if you're going to build, one expensive, one cheap pitcher, Martin Perez is probably going to be my favorite pitcher to do that with. I don't really think anyone is that close. I do like Alcantara, though. All right. That's it, right? Let's move on. And the Cardinals lineup still isn't out yet. So I assume that they're going to play who I think they're going to play, but we'll talk about that. We have Griffin Canning, who's been pitching well, going against the St. Louis Cardinals. This is one where I can understand if you're taking Griffin Canning in a deep GPP, but there's just better people. He's in a no-fly zone, right? 8,500, I would rather just go down to Martin Perez or pay up and go to 2,000 more for one of the aces that's going to have 30, 40 point upside where Canning is not. So Griffin Canning, I can understand having him as part of your pitcher pool if you're doing MME, but I would not focus on him if you're doing single entry. If you're even doing 3 lineups, I would not have one of the 6 pitchers that you use, assuming you do 6 different pitchers, be Griffin Canning. I would not. So, I do like him. I don't think, like I said, I would him in the pool, so I'm not taking the Cardinals stack against him. But this is one of those what was the game? The San Diego Pittsburgh game. This is just one of those situations where, not bad, but there's just better options. So let's just go with the better options. There's 14 games. There's no reason to hamstring ourselves by taking 5th or 6th options, when we can get 2nd or 3rd options at low enough ownership that we don't have to worry about it. For the Angels, I assume they're waiting for some kind of injury news or something because the lineup should be out right now. But right now I have LaStella, Trout, Calhoun, Upton, Fletcher, Bohr, Lucroy, Rengifo. Pujols might play instead of Bohr, but regardless, that's about the same lineup no matter what. So Michael Wacha is a very bad pitcher, and I love the Angels tonight. They are also going to be one of my favorite stacks. As I talked about yesterday, the Angels as a team have been pretty damn hot lately. If you look at OPS, and there's the Angels lineup. Oh, I love that when that happens. Angels lineup is LaStella, Trout. No, did it come in yet? Let's see. LaStella, Trout, Upton, Calhoun, Pujols, Fletcher, Rengifo, Lucroy. So no Bohr. Yeah, this is going to be one of my favorite stacks of the day. Michael Wacha is a bad pitcher, and while the Angels are going to be underrepresented because, hey Edgar, it's not Hap, it's Paxton today. Did they change Paxton out for Hap now? What the hell's going on? Don't worry me. Don't you scare me like that. As of right now, I have Paxton still. If it's Hap, then I am all over the Stros as my favorite stack of the day. No, it's Paxton. So I do like the Astros a lot. Edgar, I talked about how the Braves, the Astros, and the Indians are going to go under-owned today, even though I really do like them a lot because they're going against good pitchers. So I'm a big fan of taking those dudes. So let's see here. So again, we have LaStella, Trout, Upton batting third is fantastic. Calhoun, then we have Fletcher after Pujols batting sixth. Oopsie, I did not mean to do that. All right, I'm trying to update these lineups for y'all so you can look at them. Oop, I didn't do that right either. See, now I'm trying to rush it because I don't want to screw anything up with this video. So the only thing I need to do is Pujols 5. Yeah, no problem, Edgar. Hey, that's what I'm here for. Like I said, I'm always happy to answer your questions. Even if it's something that I've already talked about, I don't mind at all. So this is an Angels team that I am going to be over the field on. They are going to be one of my favorite stacks of the day. As I was getting into before the lineup came out, over the last week, Trout with an OPS of 1.50, ISO of 536, Rengifo 1.226 OPS, Upton 955 OPS. This is a team that has one cold hitter in Albert Pujols, so I would avoid him. Over the last week, 19 plate appearances, an OPS of 291 with a 0 ISO and a WOBA of 128, -1 weighted runs created. So that just goes to show you how bad he's been. So I would avoid Pujols, but LaStella, Trout, Upton, Calhoun, Trout and Upton specifically, and Rengifo at 3,000 on DraftKings and 2,300 on FanDuel. Absolutely love today. I was all over Rengifo and these Angels yesterday, and while they didn't do as well as I would have liked, they still did a damn fine job and got me some money. Let's move on to the night slate. So now we're getting to the CNG core territory of the night. Wait, is the Giants? Oh, you know what? I don't think that this is on the night slate. I think the night slate is the 4:10 p.m. or the 3:10 p.m. games, right? Here, CNG, let me know. Does the night slate include the Giants Diamondbacks, or is it just the 3 games at 10 p.m.? Because obviously that's going to change. That's going to change, how I talk about everything. So let me start talking about the Giants and the Diamondbacks, and then I'll do a late night summary after that. So this is one where it's all about the bats. Yeah, thank you, CNG. I appreciate that. Well, it's for you, but still. This is one where I'm all about the bats, right? Taylor Clark, terrible. Jeff Samardzija, terrible. It's really that simple. Over the last couple weeks, Taylor Clark 1.88 WHIP, 7.92 FIP, 5.06 XFIP. Samardzija 1.94 WHIP with a 4.23 FIP, 4.85. It does okay. So for CNG, it includes it, but for DraftKings, it doesn't. So let's look at it both ways then. So I'm going to do this quick summary. I absolutely hate most of the pitching on this little night slate here. There are 2 pitchers that I would play. So Yahoo, you have to play 2. I am playing Walker Buehler and Sean Gilmartin, and I will explain that as I get to it. But those are by far my 2 favorite pitchers on this night slate. Samardzija, terrible. Taylor Clark, terrible. Kittredge is an opener. Jalen Beeks is a lefty and against the A's, no thank you. Tanner Anderson, not worthy to be in the major leagues. Herman Marquez going against the Dodgers, no thank you. And then Mike Leake, over-owned because he's going against Baltimore, and I just don't think he's a good pitcher. He hasn't been in good form lately, like this year, like the last 5 years. So there's just no reason to take a low strikeout pitcher in bad form. That's almost 9,000. There's just no reason for that. So basically the pitching is sparse because the pitching is sparse everywhere tonight. Gil Martin and Buehler are two of my favorite pitchers today, period. Main slate as well. And again, I'll get to that later. But the bats, in terms of the bats, I think that the sneakiest one is going to be Baltimore against Leak or the Dodgers against Marquez. But I think that you can get some really cheap bats here. If you look at the Rays lineup against Tanner Anderson, for example, Lau 46, Meadows 47, those are underpriced. Not super cheap, but underpriced. Choi 39, then you have Adames 31, Wendell 2,700. The Oakland A's, who I absolutely love today on this night slate and in general. I would say that in both the larger all-night slate and the only night slate, the A's are going to be your best value option. If you look, Semien 4,400, Chapman 42, Olsen 44, Davis 41, Laureano 42. I want all 5 of those bats, and none of them are over 4,400. That is incredible value for a team that could very well knock the ball out of its hide today. So, Jalen Beeks is decent, but he doesn't strike out enough people. And the A's are very good against lefties. So that's who I would build my night slate around. Let's see if I have any more specifics to get into here. So again, Clark and Samardzija, terrible. Give me all the bats here. Marte is overpriced, but he's absolutely fantastic, assuming he plays. Christian Walker has been heating up, and I'm a big fan of taking him, even though it doesn't really line up as well. Oh, damn. Have I been? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I got a message. Give me 1 second. Okay, and then, so there are a few bats in this game that I like as one-offs for the night slate, though I wouldn't take the stacks as much on the bigger slate because there are much better options that I've already talked about. But Marte I love. Walker I really, really like tonight. And then nobody really on the Giants because they're just the second worst offense in baseball, period. Moving on, I talked about the rate. I talked about the Rays and the A's. The Rays and the A's are two fantastic stacks tonight on either slate, the main or the little one. And they're going to go undervalued and underowned, as a lot of the 10 p.m. games wind up doing a lot of times. But they really are, both the Rays and the A's should have batters priced at 5,000 or more. So the fact that you're getting these guys for about $1,000 discount per batter really is significant. You can get, look at it this way. If you have a pitcher that should be 10,000 and you get them for 8,000, you're saving $2,000, right? If you are getting 5 bats for your lineup that should be like 26,000 total and you're getting them for 18,000 total, think about how much value you are saving. And that is another thing, to consider when you're lineups is that, the highest score is also who has the most value, right? If Sean Gilmartin puts up 20 DKP tonight, he gets 5 times value. That will let you get other value points in And if all those people get the value, then it won't matter if someone has 30 DKP and gets 3 times value, because value is the name of the game. Finding that value. So there's that. Then we have the Rockies and the Dodgers. Buehler, I have projected as the highest scoring pitcher today. So I am a very big fan of taking Buehler because he is going to be the third highest owned of all these pitchers, and he's the third cheapest. So, I have him getting almost 50 FanDuel points. I have him getting 30 or so DraftKings points. And like I said, I don't trust Arenado to be in the lineup. He might be, but they removed him from the game yesterday, and I wouldn't, be surprised at all if they decide to be careful with him. They lost Trevor Story, which means Brendan Rodgers, who can't hit, is playing shortstop. Tony Walters has been hitting over his head. Tapia isn't as hot a hitter when he's coming off the bench, so that's a big knock on him. McMahon has been okay, but he's not hitting for power. So you basically have Blackmon, Dahl, and Murphy who you have to worry about. And Buehler is a good enough pitcher that he'll be able to strike them out and get around them. So this is a fantastic spot. I like to target the Rockies when they're at home or they're going against a lefty, not when they're in LA against Walker Buehler, who I think is really going to be one of the best pitchers today, if not the best pitchers, and scoring the most points. So if you want to pivot down from Sale and save yourself, $1,200 that you can use to upgrade either your other pitcher or some other bats, you're going to do yourself a good service, because like I said before, let me see if there's a new update on that. Buehler is the sixth highest owned pitcher today, but he's the third highest owned of like the acceptable upper range pitchers, and it actually went down 1% from 15 to 14%. So the trend on Buehler's ownership is actually going in a way that benefits us as well, because we get to get on someone in an incredible matchup with an incredible projection going against a team that does not do well in that environment or against that type of pitcher or without their 2 best hitters in the lineup. It just all lines up very well for Walker Buehler. And I would be over the field on him. And if I was playing the night slate, he would be the absolute lock. And again, absolute lock. So last but not least here, we have the Orioles going against the Mariners. Again, I talked about this briefly. We have Sean Gilmartin going against Mike Leake. Mike Leake is not a good pitcher, right? If I go through all of Mike Leake's numbers, and I'm talking about going deep into everything, is he still pitching? Where the hell is he? Oh yeah, that's right. He's expensive because no, there he is. Geez, I was looking at 8,300 for some reason. So, Mike Leake does decently well, but he's not a fantastic pitcher. And if you look, damn it, where is it? How did I lose it already? I just had the thing over it. There it is. He 8.4 strikeouts per 9 is over what you would expect for him. But the problem is when you look, deeper into it. So you have the 0.93 whip. And like I've always talked about, it's worth looking at, the difference between ERA and FIP, see if he's climbing the stairs. And in this case, the 3.21 ERA is inflated to 5.24 in terms of whip. So while I don't mind taking Mike Leake, while I don't think that Mike Leake is going to be, the worst pitcher of the day, I absolutely don't think like that. That's funny. Unruly Zoe, how's the Yankees outfield looking? Do you like anyone in that game? I like everybody in that game. I talked about it briefly before at the beginning. The Yankees and the Astros teams are going to go under-owned because people are going to want to get the value for Peacock and for Paxton. They're going to see the upside that both those pitchers have and decide that the price is low enough that it's worth taking a chance on the upside, even though the teams that they're going against are tough. But the Yankees with Judge back, oh man, I don't know how you can't ride with the Yankees team going against a peacock that is incredibly cold lately, when they're projected to get over 5 runs, and the weather and everything else in New York is going to line up for this game being an absolute slugfest. So yeah, I am a big fan of the Yankees today. I think they're going to be very highly owned, but not as highly owned as you would think, and not highly owned enough that you should worry about the ownership. Like, it's not like everybody on the line in the Yankees lineup is going to be 50% owned, so you need to do a fade on them. There are plenty of other ways you're going to have to differentiate yourself. And the fact that, again, Judge is leading off with Sanchez and Stanton and Encarnacion and Gregorius filling in the top 5, that is a really nasty 1 through 5 that the Yankees have there. So I am a big fan of the Yankees outfield today. Zoe, I'm sure you remember yesterday how I talked about how I wanted, Trout and Upton and Kepler. Today, I am a big fan of trying to get those Yankees outfielders in there. Granted, there's a few other teams I've talked about that I like, but I'll get to that when I do the summary at the end. So let's finish this up here. Again, we have the O's and the Mariners that I was talking about. I don't like Leak at all. I am not a fan of Leak. I can understand taking a chance on him, but I don't think that the oh damn it, just break my computer. No, okay. I don't think that the ownership that he's going to have on the night slate, or that he's going to have on the main slate, is going to justify the projection that he has. Gil Martin, on the other hand, isn't just going to pitch today for Baltimore. He's going to start, so he could get 5 innings. He's not someone that we can project for getting, into the 85, 90 pitch range, but he is someone that can get 4, 5, 6 innings, depending on everything. Yes, I think Chaz is right here. That's one thing I've talked about in great detail. Ownership for batters is meh for me, because it's more about the stack. And in that regard, there's plenty of ways to differentiate yourself with a stack that it's not going to be chalky. There are ways to take low batters in the 7-8 hole that aren't going to be as highly owned. The only thing that I use ownership projections for the most part, is pitching, and I use that as a tiebreaker. Like, if I have the top 3 pitchers in the same tier, if I have Sale, Bauer, excuse me, if that will probably push me to having a little bit more Buehler, or towards wanting to get more Buehler, because, again, if they're about equitable in terms of where I project them, I would rather have that extra leverage against the field. But as I was saying, Gil Martin, I would expect to get 3, 4 innings today. I don't expect him to get a quality start. I'm not sure that he's going to be in line for the win, but he is someone that, I saw all the time on the Mets, and he is a very, very good pitcher. He gets a lot of strikeouts. He keeps the ball on the ground, and he is not, someone that we should target. The Orioles bullpen that's going to come after him, we should target, so I don't mind taking Seattle in that regard. But this is going to be one of those cases where I'm a big fan of the minimum price dude pitching for Baltimore. He pitched 36 innings in the minors, got 40 strikeouts. Let's see, I got more here. 11 walks in 36 innings, 1.1 whip. Everything just leads to him having worked his way back into Major League Baseball. He was never a bad pitcher as it was. He just didn't have a spot. And now they're giving him the chance, and I'm a big fan of riding him. If he was 6,000 or 7,000, no thank you. But that 4,000 price tag, again, we need to look at this sometimes in terms of, Arenado is playing. That does decrease my projection for Walker Buehler. I did not think they would risk it, considering that they had to pull him from the game yesterday. But it is Blackmon, Dollar, Arenado, Murphy, McMahon, Desmond, Rogers, Walters. Yeah, that is it. Okay, so again, to sum up, and I'm going to sum everything up right now. My favorite pitchers of the day are going to be the expensive guys. We are going to look first at, well, I had Bueller first. I'm going to put Bauer first now because of the matchup against the Tigers. I'm going to put Sale second just because he's 12,000 and he is like 30% projected owned. And then I will put Bueller third. While Arenado does not hit righties that well, it is still a downgrade over whoever else would have played for Arenado. And then, like I said, I love Gil Martin at 4,000. If we are looking for value, Gil Martin could get you in the double digits, and that will be 3 times value. And then if we're talking about the mid-priced pitchers, Zoe got to it right there. Yep, Nola is number one. Nola is number one with a bullet. The Marlins team, as I talked about earlier, and you did miss it, the Marlins team, as I talked about earlier, is rolling out like a double A lineup. The only issue we have with Nola is that he's projected to be 33% owned. As I said before, though, I wouldn't have gotten off of Nola unless he was 50% owned or more. So I still love Nola tonight. This Marlins lineup with Yadiel Rivera, Brian Holiday, JT Riddle, Cesar Puelos, Starlin Castro, the 4 through 9 here are absolute jokes. So I have no problem riding Nola, but in terms of ownership and getting over the field, smart GPP play, my favorite of the mid-priced pitchers is going to be Martin Perez at 7,600, going against a poor Royals team. He has been in fantastic form lately, and as I explained when I went over the Royals lineup, apart from Merrifield and Soler, there's just not really anyone there that worries me. So I think Perez is going to have an easy go of it. Humberto Arteaga, Terrence Gore, there's just a few bats here that might as well not even show up today because, they could just, like a pitcher, like Bartolo Colon used to do, just sit there with the bat on your shoulder and hope to get a walk because you're sure as shit not going to do anything else. And then my third favorite mid-priced pitcher is going to be Sonny Gray. While I wasn't a big fan of him going into this, with the Brewers lineup having no Braun and no Grandal, I am not a fan of Ben Gamel 1 or Thames, Pena, Shaw, Arcia. So that's 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the pitcher slot that I am not a fan of. So while Gray is going to have to, walk Yelich and Moustakas, there's barely anybody else that really worries me. Even Kane in a righty-on-righty matchup doesn't really worry me that much. And then the only punt-priced pitcher that I like today is Sean Gilmartin. Again, I don't think he's going to get you, 20, 25 DKP, but if he can get you 16 DKP, if he can get you 4 times value, that would be pretty damn good value. I don't think a lot of other pitchers are going to get there. And that 4,000 is going to let you fit in pretty much whatever bats you want today. So barring any questions, I am literally about to start crying from the pain. I'm really having a hard time trying to focus and talk, but luckily my brain goes into autopilot when the pain kicks in, so I can just keep going. Thank you, years of debate training with IBS. Yeah, I don't look like I'm getting any other questions here. So as always, have a beautiful, beautiful day. I love all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Hampton. Hey, Hampton! I haven't seen you in a while. How have you been? Thank you for joining, man. I hope you've been doing good. I have not seen you talk or anything in a really long time. Yeah, man. I hope the Dodgers lefties. I told you I like the Dodgers bats today. I don't like them for the night slate. I don't like them as much as the A's, but I do think that you're going to get some really good value there. Peterson 41, Verdugo 36. I'm not sure if Muncy's playing. He's going to be a little expensive, but there's going to be a lot of really good bats today. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Really, all the love in my heart goes to all of you. It really means a lot to me. I just want to say one thing. There's a member out there named Kurt that sent me a message. Kurt, he's not been doing too good lately. He's been sick for a really long time. He keeps losing weight. They can't find the reason for it. He's had two two different doctors say he's had cancer and then say that he doesn't after the oncological tests came back. So he's been down a little bit lately. So, I don't know if he's watching this. I have no idea if he's going to watch it in the future. But everybody out there, just send some positive vibes to the man. Say however is your method for sending, that positivity, that good out into the universe. Whatever your way of doing that is, try to do that for him tonight. The email I got from him just broke my heart, that someone is dealing with that kind of pain and that kind of anguish, and then it's affecting them, mentally. And I can understand it. Believe me, I understand how the pain can get to you when there's no end in sight. But Kurt needs some love today. He needs some support. Let's send him everything we got, Robe Nation. So love to you, Kurt, if you watch this. Love to everybody else. Thank you for everything, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow. So again, my wife is out of town until Sunday night. So tomorrow I plan on doing a quick video. Well, I don't know how it lines up, but I plan on doing a quick video for the early slate and then the late slate. And then Sunday, I should be able to do a video whenever I want. So basically, I could do whatever I want time-wise now. It's just a question of being able to get down the stairs. And right now I need to go lay down. So I love you all. Thank you all so much again. Thank you. Thank you, Zoe. Hey, I'm strong. I have this pain and the pain will never go away, but I'm lucky because I could have it worse. I have a loving family, a beautiful wife, a beautiful son. I've lost a lot of people, but I still got a lot of family here that I love more than anything and keeps me going, man. I'm one of those people. I can go outside and see the wind blowing through the trees. I don't know how you can look at something like that and the blue sky with the clouds in the background and not just feel like a sense of gratitude that you're even alive. It's just as bad as it gets. There's so much beauty out there. The odds of any of us existing are so low. You just got to enjoy it. You just got to enjoy it as hard as it is. I'll tell you this one little story before I go. Because a few months ago, my wife had to go to a conference in Vegas, and I don't normally travel, as I've talked about. I don't even drive really because of the pain. But I had my walker, I had medicine, everything in Vegas that I need, I could get. And they're incredibly good in terms of having mobility scooters and taxis everywhere. So I decided to give it a go. And we were at a restaurant one of the nights, and it started snowing on the Vegas Strip for the first time in like 15 years. And instead of, taking the taxi back like we had been, or taking the trolley or whatever the hell, the tram, we walked. And it was a long walk and it hurt. And, the next day, I couldn't move until like 5 or 6 p.m. Like I couldn't get out of bed. It was the pain was really, really something else. And my wife came home to get ready for dinner at like 5 or 5:30 and said, like, why did you do that to yourself? Like, what's going to happen. Why didn't you just listen to me? And why didn't we just like take the cab back? Why didn't we just take that back? And I said, because, and I mean this, and I want you all to take this to heart. I'm not going to remember the pain. 20 years from now, I'm going to remember holding my wife's hand and walking down the Las Vegas Strip with the lights glowing and the neon for miles, with snow cascading behind it, lighting the backdrop in the most beautiful way that you can imagine. And these were thick. This is, when the temperature's like a little over freezing and the things come that big. This was a beautiful, heavy snow. I'm not going to remember the pain. The pain is something I have to deal with, but that's not the life that I live. That's not the beauty that's out there. That's not the memories that I keep. What I do and what I love is my life, and that'll be there no matter how hard the days are, how bad the pain is. And you guys are there for me, and I'm there for you, and that means the world to me. And I hate to get off on tangents like that. I like to write about that stuff. I don't want to waste your time in videos by getting off on tangents like that, but it means a lot. And I really do, you can tell how much this community of good people means to me. more than anything. And I will always be there to help y'all as much as I can, all day, every day. So much love from me to all of you. Say your prayers up to Kurt tonight. Give some positive vibes, whatever it is. And I love you all. Best of luck. I can't wait till I hear one of y'all sending me a tweet that one of y'all wanted GPP tonight. That's what I'm waiting for. All right. Have a beautiful evening, everybody. I love you all. Thank you very much.